if you are watching the replay of this, I will wave my hands like this whenever I actually begin to start talking. So skip forward until you see me wave my hands like this, and I'll let you know when we start. I'm going to wait a little minute in the meantime to make sure we actually have people start to kind of circulating through. And I still got to get set up here. See if we can get this going here. Alrighty. We are on. Hello, person that is in here. I'm just going to wait like another minute or two to get everyone else to kind of start to circulate through. See if we can get this rolling. I plan on streaming for like an hour-ish or so just let me know. If we go over time, then we go over time. If we miss time, then we miss time. But I'm not going to set any stuff for myself here. Copy the link. I'm going to go post this real quick. Alrighty. That should do it. Alright, we are all squared away. That's what we like to see. Got this rolling. Alrighty. Wait a little extra second to get people to start to circulate, and we will roll. I apologize for the delays. My work schedule was a little bit later than I had initially anticipated, but we're off and we're here now, so woo. I know leagues should be kicking off for everybody. I know they just did for me last week. I did not do, or this week, just yesterday, I just kicked off. I apologize, and I clearly did not. I could tell, you can tell it was the off season because I clearly have some catch up I got to do here. Wasn't the worst I bowled, but it definitely was not the best I bowled either. And you know what? That is a-okay. It's all kind of the way this stuff rolls, you know. You just got to kind of get back into the swing of things. I'll give it like another minute or two. I'll even throw up something on the community real quick. Posts. Hello, I'm just going to give it like one more minute to have some other people join if they are, and then I'm going to kick things off here. I'm trying to throw up a post real quick to get more people to hop in. Alrighty, let's do this. Post. There we go. Alrighty. So, as I've said before, if you're just now tuning in, if you can always ask a question using like the live comment system or whatever on here, and every single time I do one of these, I will cover a specific topic, but whatever you ask does not have to be even remotely pertinent to the topic I'm talking about. The topic is just designed to be something for me to talk about to fill time if questions aren't circulating in. But if you have a question, it could be about anything ranging from something extremely complex to literally just asking about like how the score works. Like I will happily make sense of it as much as I can here. So I guess we will start now then, because I don't want to make us lose too much time. So I'm waving my hands for all of you who are watching this recording back. It is now starting. So for all of you watching, I really hope that prior to watching this, you went to the playlist tab and actually started that pathway of learning. That's kind of my like bread and butter, I guess, of this YouTube channel, and kind of like the main means I have of giving back to all of you guys and providing a means of coaching everything, which in the last live stream, I kind of spoke about how that pathway of learning is a lot different based off of like what we're all traditionally used to, and in that what we're all used to is, you know, you learn how to throw the ball first, the physical side, and then you start to learn like, okay, here's how you adjust, here's how the oil works and all that. That's what we're used to. But I actually kind of did a little switcheroo there, and I kind of flipped it all around to be the opposite. So as opposed to you actually like learning how to throw the ball and do all that stuff, and then you learn how to score well, I teach you how the pins work, how the lane works, and then throughout that time that you've been developing your mind, you've been subconsciously developing your body. And then now that you actually have a better concept of what's actually happening out on the lane, it makes it way easier to know what you have to work on physically to actually cater toward what the objective of the sport is. Because sure, we all want to have a really nice swing and we all want to be really stable and look really good at the line, but it's only good if you actually know how to move your feet around and actually do get something out of your form, right? You can have the prettiest delivery out of anyone in the whole entire world, but until you understand how to adjust and play to what the lane is trying to tell you, there's no way you're going to score well. You can be consistent, but it has to be in the right things. I cannot stress that enough. So, providing that all of you have watched the first and second and all those like little supplementary videos that I've thrown in that like playlist, you kind of have a decent concept of what I'll be covering throughout this live stream. So I always like to talk about how there is no luck within bowling, and it's still, even after people watching the video, I've had people like call up to me or reach out to me and say like, hey, like I still just do not believe you. Like, that makes no sense. How can you sit there and tell me that there is no luck? And I really can't blame you for like assuming that there is luck, because like you got to think about what it is our eyes are seeing. Like, all you're seeing is 10 white sticks flying around every which other direction, and they're hitting each other, and it seems like there's some variety. Like, it's like, oh, that white pin, that one pin might not hit this one a certain way, and that's what caused me not to strike there, or whatever. And I totally get that. However, that's not the reality. It's very deceiving. You'll come to realize that a lot of things throughout the sport of bowling are often very, very deceiving in the way they look, in the way that it's marketed to you, and every other thing along those means. And it makes sense. So trust me, just let me get into posting more of these pathway of learnings, and that will make sense. But what I'm trying to say is you need to rid it from your mind that there is luck, because I'm telling you, if you've ever bowled in a league or watched people online and they're leaving the same, like, have you ever noticed that there's a lot of like common leaves? Like, a bucket is something you see very commonly. A 10 pin is something you see very commonly. Some, the big four split, like, there's common leaves. And if you think that there's common leaves are just completely because you got unlucky, that's where the problem is. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that is incorrect. So that is why those videos highlight how you need to understand how your ball is establishing that deflection and how it's bouncing off of those pins as it's going through all of them. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate the video from, I haven't like went back and watched it in a minute, but from what I can remember, at least as at the moment, is I remember I spoke about like how the pins are. So we know, here's your bowling ball, right? This is just the bowling ball I use in all my videos because I don't bowl with it personally. It's just a beater ball I just use for everything. So your bowling ball spans at about 8.595, or I guess closer to 8.6 if you want to be less finite with that, inches wide. And from the center of the pin, not counting how wide it is about, like, from the center of one pin to the center of another, the very, very center of gravity for each of them spans 12 inches. And they're wide enough to where your ball, if there's two pins standing side by side each other in regular positions, can hit in between them and hit them both over. So that's why to strike, they have to hit the pins the right way. At the head pin, how close you're playing on that head pin is going to be what decides the whole entirety of the rest of the how your ball deflects. So obviously, like, we got to think, like, well, let me first define what deflection is. So it's like, what's that saying? For every action, there's equal and opposite reaction, right? Like, most of us that are bowling in leagues and stuff, if you're a little bit more seasoned, are throwing 14 to 16 pound balls. Usually the average is about 15. And that sounds like a lot of weight, but it can be very deceiving when there's 10 of those pins that all weigh, like, on average, like 3.8 pounds each. So you got to think, your ball, the deflection is the force that those pins are bringing back to your bowling ball and making it move around. If you ever like throw a bowling ball, and even on the ones you strike, now that I'm saying it, you're going to notice it, that as that ball's going through the pins, it's not perfectly straight. It's like getting bounced around and getting beat up and everything. That's the deflection. Now, when I say this, a lot of people think, oh, I don't want any deflection. Okay, let's slow down a little bit. I like your thinking, but that is also incorrect, because there is a bunch of different ways you can strike. However, only one of them is a perfect strike, textbook, so to speak. And that way does in fact involve having some deflection. So you want to have deflection to where it's hitting the pins the correct way as it's going through the entirety of all 10 of them. However, you need to be able to control how much of it that you're getting. So I wish I had like a photo or something, but the ball actually only makes contact with 4 pins on the deck. The 1, the 3, the 5, and the 9. Or if you're a lefty, the 1, 2, 5, and the 8. So the very, very first pin when you strike that the ball makes contact with is the 1 pin, or the head pin. It has to be the head pin. So when your ball first makes contact with that head pin, it's going to bounce off of the head pin into the 3, bounce off of the 3 into the 5, bounce off of the 5 into the 9. And then the pins hit each other along the rest of the way out, which again, I go a lot more into that with photos and everything in the pathway of learning. But so what that means is your ball is only really putting in a 40% of the effort, while the pins are putting in 60%, if you really think about it, since your ball is only making contact with 4 pins. So by understanding that concept, you'll find it a lot easier to actually pick out what your ball is doing as it's going through. So let's kind of expand on that a little bit. So we've all been there before. If you're newer, if you're seasoned or everything, where you're constantly, and I'm going to say this so religiously because I know it makes all of us super frustrated, is the 10 pin. The 10 pin. You tend to leave that 10 pin pretty often for whatever reason, and it seems very, very frustrating because you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so close, like it should be hitting that 10 pin. Now, some people will say something and they'll start referencing angles. So I kind of touched on that on the second episode, but let's kind of expand on that a little bit further. So the angle of entry is going to be a very, very big key on how close your ball has to hit that head pin for it to have the correct amount of deflection. So I spoke earlier, like I just said, about how your ball is bouncing off the pins and going different which ways. So so if we're looking at, here's the 2 pins here. Let me just grab something that's dumb that I can reference. Here we go, I have playing cards. Here's the 2 pins lined up that you actually make contact with, right? Your ball is coming in here, right? And hitting into this pin off of this one. Or hitting off of this one into this one. This is the head pin, this is the 3. Which for you guys, I guess, is flipped. So here, I'll make it backwards. So, because most of us are righties. So this should look like you're looking at the head pin in the 3. Ball comes here, bounces off this, hits into this. So the angle of entry is how much from the side your ball is coming in. So like a shallow, so to speak, angle of entry would be one that's pretty direct. It's not coming in as far to the right. But a much more aggressive and a steeper angle of entry would be something more like this, where it's coming in at a much like deeper angle. So as I touched on in that pathway of learning, optimally, and this is not always how it has to be, but optimally, your ball tends to have the best odds of striking, so to speak, if it's between 3 to 6 degrees of angle, which that doesn't sound like a lot. Like you're like, oh my God, like 3 to 6 degrees, I'm getting more than that, I have to be. On average, most of you are lucky if you're even getting above like 5, or even getting it to 5, better yet. So it's deceiving because that freaking lane is so long and it's not that wide, where it looks like your ball is not going that far, really, for how long it actually is. It's kind of like an optical illusion, which I'll touch on that later, and you're going to be like, whoa. Because I'll actually draw out to scale what the lane looks like, and you're going to be like, it's that long? I feel like I'm hooking it so much. I promise you you're not, but it's going to be really funny. I really wish I could see all your reactions when I make that video. But so when you're leaving a 10 pin, It's because your ball is over deflecting. So what's happening, if you can picture, because I should have got a photo of it or something, silly me, I'll do better next time, sorry guys. If you can picture all those pins, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what your ball is doing is it's hitting that head pin, and it is not having enough angle for how close you're hitting that head pin to hit the 3 pin in the correct spot. So what it's doing is it's bouncing too far to the right off the head pin and hitting that 3 pin just about dead on. So the 6 pin, which is the one just to the right and behind the 3 pin, is actually getting hit by your ball and not by the 3 pin itself. And it's hitting that pin into the gutter around the 10, and it's leaving that 10 pin. So that's why it's doing that. So when you tend to leave that 10 pin a lot of people will say something along the lines of like, oh, you need to up your angles. And the reason that they're saying that is because what they're seeing is that your ball is not carrying through that head pin enough and hitting that 3 pin in the correct spot. So based off of where you hit, if your ball had more of an angle and hit the same spot on the head pin, it would carry through it and deflect less. Thus, hitting that 3 pin, your ball hits the 3 pin on the left side and hits it correctly over. So that's why that people are saying that. However, you can still strike based off of the angle you're creating. All that means is with a less steep angle, aka less degrees or less to the right that ball is coming into the pocket, your ball just has to hit the head pin closer to the center, right? If my ball is more direct, it's going to have an easier time bouncing off, right? So if I hit the head pin closer toward the center, it's not going to bounce off as much. Versus if I hit it over here, the ball's going to bounce off a lot. Now, if I'm playing a steeper angle from the side like this, right, and I play too close to that head pin, it's not going to deflect enough, and it might split. It might leave like one of the pins in the center of the back, like the 8 or the 9, because it's too close for that angle. So if I don't hit as much, it'll deflect more and then hit that 3 pin in the right spot and hit the 5 pin in the 9 and so on and so forth. So when people say that you need to up your angles, they're not really incorrect, but it's deceiving in that it's making you think that like that was a bad shot. Like it's really not. It's a good shot that you just made, but it just wasn't close enough based off of the angle of entry that you have to the head pin. So learning to balance the angle you're creating with how much of the head pin that you're using is extremely critical, because that is what dictates where those pins are going as the ball's going through the pins. So long as that makes sense. I hope all of you are following along. Again, if you are not, make sure to leave a little comment or leave a little like thing on the live chat and I'll try to explain it more. But basically, it's all about controlling how much of the head pin you're using based off the angle you're creating. So when you go out and practice, here's something I would challenge you to do to learn it. So try standing toward the center of the lane and getting your ball to not hook as much, so to speak. So when you do that, when you stand more to the right where there's less oil, since there's more oil in the center of the lane and less on the outside of the lane, that's making that ball read really soon and not very aggressively, which means the angle of entry will be way shallower, right? You may think it's like steeper because you got to think, oh, I'm standing more right. That means it has to be hooking in. That's wrong. So since it's reading sooner, that means it's not getting as far down the lane before it's reading, meaning the angle is not as aggressive. And you're going to find usually when you start to play the lane like that, that's when you leave like 10 pins or buckets or you hit light. So what that's going to train you to do when you learn to play the outside of the lane like that is that you're saying, okay, my ball has a much easier time deflecting since it's not coming in as far from the right. So that means I have to hit that head pin closer toward the center so it does not deflect too much. Now, once you start to kind of understand that, then practice standing way to the left and getting it in the oil and getting it to have an aggressive angle, a higher degree of entry, a higher degree angle of entry into the pocket. Then you're going to realize, okay, I cannot hit that close to the head pin as I was when I was not getting as steep of an angle, because if I do, I'm going to split, or I'm going to have too much continuity and not enough deflection, and it's not going to strike. So then you'll learn, okay, if I just am not as close to the center of the head pin, if I'm making a steeper angle, it'll have an easier time deflecting more, thus hitting the 1, 3, 5, 9 in the correct way. I know me talking through this concept versus me creating a video that kind of showcases it in action, which is the next video plan, is actually me making a short and then putting it in between it so it shows, okay, here's like a so-and-so degree angle of entry and how close I'm hitting the head pin versus a less high degree of entry and how much closer I'm getting it to the head pin. I think you guys kind of get where I'm going with that, but it's also like understanding the pin, like the deflection and the pin characteristics, and that it'll take you some time to get used to seeing it, but once you see it, you're never going to unsee it, I promise. So very, very weird concept to explain. I really wish that I was like out on a lane right now, actually able to like just start throwing balls and show you guys, but the bottom line is you just have to match that angle of entry to how much of the head pin you're using to get the right amount of deflection, right? More angle of entry means it'll have a harder time deflecting as much, since it's, you know, coming in at an angle more, it's going to have a hard time deflecting. So if you hit less of the head pin toward the center, it's going to make it deflect more. So that's what you want. Versus if it's not as aggressive and more direct, it's going to have an easier time deflecting. So that means I have to get it closer to that head pin so it doesn't over deflect as easily, vice versa. Trying to think of where to go from here. I could really use some questions, guys. I'm hoping that as this stuff kind of continues, once we get a little bit more viewership and support, this will kind of branch off from me just kind of like talking, and it'll kind of turn into more of like a Q&A kind of thing, which I love. But I just want to make sure that all of you guys are getting the like support from me that you need to help make sure you're developing in the right ways. So please have a comment if you absolutely have one that you can make. I'm trying to think of other stuff. So let's kind of talk about the lane a little bit. Let's kind of go a little bit past where I've gone in the pathway of learning. So I'll always explain it every time. I'm going to keep saying it on how I'm throughout the whole series and everything. I'm going to describe it for what most of us bowl on, and that is going to be like your typical like house shot leagues patterns that's designed to give you more like leeway and leverage and give you more miss room, and it'll be more like beginner or intermediate level friendly. Obviously, I'm sure some of us, including myself, have bowled on stuff that's a lot more challenging, and I'm sure we do continue to do so. So if you want me to go into more detail on the more like complicated challenges, like the stuff that the professionals bowled on, because I've bowled on it hundreds of times of different patterns and everything in tournaments and all that, like I'll happily dive into those concepts. But for ease of simplicity, we'll just explain what we're used to, and that's what most of us want to benefit from, and that's our performance in league. So lane and oil on said lane. Oil equals invisible. Oil is the challenge. Oil is what we're trying to understand. Oil is the missing puzzle, is the puzzle that you'll never have all the pieces for. Oil is about educated guesses and leveraging your experience that you have and your knowledge, which I'm instilling upon all of you now, to stay ahead of the adjustments as things move around. So, house shot. More oil is within the center of the lane, and less oil is in the outsides of the lane. Best way I can describe this in a physical form is think of golf, like when you're putting. Now imagine, here's the hole, right? This is the hole, and you take the actual like topography and you just make it basically like a funnel, to where if here's the hole and here's the hill, if I hit over here, it'll still get on that hill and go in the hole, versus if I hit it right on, obviously it'll stay, or if I hit it way over here, it'll hit that hill and it'll still go in. It's basically making a suction cup to the pocket, because if there's more oil in the middle and less on the outside, if we miss to the right where there's less oil sooner, that's going to make your ball read sooner, or in our terms, hook more. Versus if you miss to the left and it's gliding through the thicker oil for longer, that's going to make it not hook as much and stay on line. So if you kind of get yourself into a groove and get yourself lined up, as a lot of people like to say, you find yourself in most league patterns tending to have like about half an arrow to an arrow's worth of room that you can miss by and still have a pretty opportune time of striking. Now, let's just think, using some of this knowledge we've learned, does that mean if you miss, that angle of entry you're going to have will be the same? I'll give you a minute to just think about that. Let's think. If I miss, if my ball gets to the right side of the lane and then it hooks in from there, versus if it stays in the center of the lane for longer and then hooks in from there, will it have the same angle of entry every time? Nope. So that is what you're actually battling more so than you would on a sports shot. So you have miss room, and I promise the oil will help get your ball to the pocket, but if you miss, don't be surprised if your carry is not that great, because that angle of entry is now going to vary because of your miss. For example, if my target down lane is outside of the lane, like if I am intentionally playing a target that is designed to get my ball to hook from the outer edge of the lane, it's going to have a different angle if I miss to the inside of that and it reads way later. If my target is toward the outside of the lane, down lane, that's going to mean it's reading sooner, and it's not going to have as steep of an angle of entry on one that I missed the inside, and it waits longer and then reads. Look at these two, look at my hands, how they're not the same. You're going to have some variancy there. So sure, it's designed to be friendly in that it keeps you hitting the head pin in the correct area, but if you miss, don't be surprised if you don't strike, because you're going to hit that same area, but it's not going to be the correct area for that missed angle of entry that you just now created. There's a common misconception there. On sports shot, if you miss by that much, it's just not going to hook at all, or it's going to overhook, right? Like if it's a 50th as forgiving as a house shot, you're just not going to hit the head pin in the right spot. So it'll punish you more, versus house shot is catered to keep you in the pocket at least for longer and give you more of what you're looking for. So don't fall victim to that, and don't be like, oh man, like I feel like I'm standing in the right spot, but I just can't carry. Well, maybe it's because you missed on that one, or you missed these past 5 shots, and that angle of entry is not correct for where you're actually hitting that head pin on. So that's a very common one I get asked a lot is, oh, like that last one had it, but this one where I only missed by a little bit, all of a sudden I'm leaving 10 pins. Well, yeah, no kidding, because the angle of entry is different. Way different. Way different. So that is always something to keep in the back of your mind and think about. Trying to think of where else to go. I don't want to go like too far ahead where we're like starting to dive into concepts and stuff, because like that I haven't already covered in that pathway of learning, because I want that pathway of learning to kind of lay it out. Oh, hi Julia. She said, as someone who has only bowled with 11-pound balls due to my size, how can I eventually make my way up to a 14, 15-pound ball? Are there exercises I could do to help? That's a good question. So a lot of stuff, at least when it comes to ball weights, is a lot of the issues come from improper management of your like energy. So a common misconception, if you watched that Quick Tip Tuesday video I just posted of me outside rolling that ball, that's a great spot to start. So a common misconception is if I need to throw the ball harder, I have to rely on my arm muscles, or arms, if you throw two-handed, right, to create more power. Like, oh, if I want more power, I should just like grip it a little harder and swing my arm a little faster and throw it a little harder. And sure, you'll get some more speed that way, and it'll help you like throw more higher weight, like, because that's the problem is you definitely probably can throw a higher weight, but you're worried about it not being good because you're going to throw it slower, right? That's the problem. So if you want to feel more comfortable, because look at me, like I'm a pretty scrawny thin guy, and I throw 15-pound balls. So it's about using your body to draw as much power from as many different sources as you can. So the first problem that a lot of people have is if you start too close to the foul line and don't give yourself enough real estate to move forward, you feel kind of claustrophobic when you're standing there, and you feel like you can't really get a lot of like forward momentum. So try taking a handful of scooches back until it feels a little uncomfortable, and then keep throwing from there until that feels comfortable. And then take a couple scooches back again, and rinse and repeat this process, and before you know it, you're going to be covering like 1.5 times the distance you were initially covering. So when you're covering more distance, that means your feet, to get to the same spot in the foul line, have to take longer strides, And usually, because gravity is the same amount of speed down, your feet are moving faster, which means if your momentum is going forward, I no longer have to rely on this arm to like really muscle it to get as much speed, but rather my momentum is helping carry out that speed. And now I'm not drawing as much energy from just one source of my body. Another thing to keep in mind is a lot of your power, for sure, what you'd think is coming from your arm, is actually coming from the leg corresponding to the arm that you bowl with. So for righties, unless you have a goofy release, which is fine. For righties, it's your right leg. For lefties, it's your left leg. So when you're going up, that second to last step right here, as I'm about to swing down, is designed to push and kick you forward even more. So if you pair that with you standing further back, like a lot of my power there is coming from this leg. So if you have a moment to watch that Quick Tip Tuesday on how to actually like go outside and do that drill and learn how to get the feel for it, I would advise you do that. Like even if it's just like taking a bowling ball you don't really care about or whatever and just rolling it like on the ground outside or wherever, or if there's a hill in front of you, that's even nicer because then at least comes back to you. You don't have to walk around and go grab it over and over again. But a lot of it, if you want to learn to throw more weight, is just to learn how to leverage more of your body to gain more power in other places outside of just your arm or arms, plural. So good question, good question. And for some people, I know if there's any like people that are watching this back, if you're younger, like, and your body is still developing, like give it time. You'll be able to throw more weight as you get older. Like don't force yourself to throw something that's just completely beyond uncomfortable for you. But if you're older and you're just like, I just feel like I have to muscle it and I'm missing all the time, like find more sources of power. Use your legs, use your momentum. Better yet, allow gravity to help you. Like if I hold the ball here normally and my backswing only goes this high, of course I'm not going to have much power because I have no forward, there's no like potential energy. Versus if I start up here and my arm swing gets up here, well now I can just like gravity pull the ball down from higher up, and now I have a lot more leverage, a lot more power, a lot more everything. So that's a great way to start. So moving your feet back, drawing more power from your legs as opposed to your arms, and actually letting that swing be a little more free and a little bit wider and a little more aggressive. So now you have gravity helping you, momentum helping you, speed helping you, your legs helping you. Everything is designed to help you. It's all about catering your physical release to sources that you can draw from that just come from nature, right? If you do something unconventionally, physically, like I do in my setup, as I discussed in the last live stream, you shouldn't do something unconventionally if it comes at no benefit to you. Some things are just universally bad within bowling physically, right? Like falling off balance has no benefit to anybody, but some people still do it. But if falling off balance means you're getting leverage on the ball and you're releasing at the same spot, then guess what? It now has a benefit for you. So doing something unconventional, like me, where my setup is like this when I bowl. This makes no sense. Nobody does this. But at the point of release, when this hand is now straight, look where my hand is on the ball. I'm inside, I'm underneath, and I can rotate it a lot more with my fingers. So by me doing that unconventional thing, I am seeing a benefit from that. The only time you should rid something that you're doing out of your physical side is when it's unconventional and you're seeing no benefit from it, right? Like if you're struggling to be accurate, but your arm swing is like this, I don't think there's any benefit you're gaining from throwing the ball like this. Or if you struggle to stay on balance, but you like fall off the shot and sometimes you're releasing here, sometimes you're releasing here, sometimes you're releasing here, well, there's no benefit from that, right? So that's usually your first telltale sign I have to rid something out of my mind. Excellent question. We don't have a lot of people in here. We only have 2 people. Kind of bummed. I guess it is. 'Tis the middle of the week. I probably should try to cater these streams more toward the weekends. But that is A-okay. A-okay. Just trying to think where else we can go with this here. Because I really do feel like we really did cover like just about every concept. At least, I'm sure a lot of questions for those of you that are watching back this replay will start to come up as you kind of go out there, especially with the league season first starting. Like, I know a lot of you are still getting back into the swing of things, and you haven't really had a lot of good opportunities to actually go out there and test out like the stuff that you've been learning from me or from others and whatnot. So if you need some more time to go out and test it out and come back with a response, like, it could be a video that I posted 18 million years ago, and you can still comment on it, and I'll get the little notification, and I'll respond to you and get your question answered. That's what this channel is all about, right? And clearly, I need to make an investment in a whiteboard or something that I can lay up back here for these, because that would be pretty useful to have right now. I'm kind of bummed I didn't have that, but because I know a couple of my buddies reached out. We might go out bowling today, so I might go take some videos there while I'm gone and throw them up for you guys and everything. So that might be kind of fun, but probably reach out to them and see if they do want to go. I don't know. It's only 6:30. I feel like I kind of flew through these topics pretty quickly. I feel like I definitely am missing something that I should have covered. I'm quite confident I did. I will definitely shoot to do these streams more so on the weekends, since I know that's when most of you are free. So I'll definitely make that. But figured I'd test the waters to see if we got some good viewing during the week, and clearly I just need to keep it on weekends for now. Thinking back. We talked about the pins, we talked about deflection, we talked about the variance of angles, we talked about that, which was good. Pathway of Learning, which you have not, if you have not watched the Pathway of Learning, go watch it. It's the best part of this whole channel so far. Oh, I remember. I kind of made a quick little tidbit on, along with the angle of entry video, talking about why exactly we hook the ball. So this is a quick thing. This is the only thing I'm missing. So I'll run through this, and then I'll probably just cut her short for now, since we don't really have a whole lot of people, and I already covered what I wanted to cover. So the reason we hook the bowling ball is because with that 3 degree to 6 degree optimal angle that you have to hit that head pin on for it to deflect the right amount and still have a high odds of like striking based off of like, there's enough head pin where you can afford to be close enough to the center. It's literally impossible to bowl straight and create even a 3 degree angle within the means of the lane that's in front of you. The maximum you can create without throwing the ball in the air over like the right gutter or the left gutter would be like 1.5 to not even 2. It's like, I think it's a little just short of 2 degrees. So you're not even able to create that angle. It's physically impossible unless you choose to stand in the other lane over and throw it in the air over that lane and get it to land just in front of the head pin. Then sure, you can absolutely make that work. But until we have, Fred Flintstone over there, hucking the ball, doing whatever, I don't think any of us are going to be doing that. On top of that, since I was just kind of briefly discussing how that oil works and how it's giving you that forgiveness and at least keeping you close, if you don't hook the bowling ball, you're just opting out of any assistance that oil is giving you. On top of that, I don't have my cut open ball with me anymore, but I used to have a cut open ball that I would like to show people, so I'll have to get another one for that too. But each and every single ball that you're purchasing on the inside has a core and the outside has a different sort of like surface material and stuff. And all that kind of stuff dictates how early the ball hooks, how late the ball hooks, how aggressive it is, how docile it is. There's a whole system about it called precession. And I don't plan on making a bowling ball like description video until later on, because I don't think you need to have a bunch of bowling balls to be successful, but I still think understanding what you're buying and stuff is extremely critical. But that technology on the inside of the ball is designed to also cater to that oil, depending on what bowling ball you buy, of course, and depending on how you throw, of course. But you can take just about any bowling ball and put the finger holes and thumb hole, if you use one, in different spots and different layouts and everything to fit your hand, to read the lane the right way based off of what you're most commonly presented with oil-wise and all that stuff. So when you do not hook the bowling ball, you're opting out of the assistance with the oil, you're opting out of the assistance with the actual proper angles, and you're even opting out of the hidden technology inside of that bowling ball. So to strike, you have genuinely, if you are playing the best angle, that 4.5 degrees optimally, you have about half an inch of wiggle room to get that ball to deflect pretty close, and even that's being pretty generous. I'd say you probably have about a third of an inch of room to actually get that ball to, if you're throwing like dead straight, that's how accurate you have to be. Because with those pins offset like this, if you look at it head on like this is all you see. But if you rotate it from the side where your ball's entering, there's a lot more room. But all we see is this. That's hard. So now I have to hit in between these two like this versus having to hit in between these two. Does that make sense? So you're playing a harder spot. You have no assistance from anything outside of the means of yourself, inside of the means of yourself, or anything. You are wholeheartedly confident. You can be accurate down to the width of a nickel. It's just never going to be optimal. And you can even look up, if you're ever bored, spinners, like bowling spinners, and there's these people that actually bowl and they make it twist like a yo almost. So instead of it rolling along the surface of the lane, it's spinning like a bottle top or like a UFO. And they bowl by technicality straight, but since it's spinning like that, the minute it makes contact with a pin, it now all of a sudden has different deflection characteristics, which is why it works for them. However, you'll still notice more times than not, they like to leave a 5 pin because that ball struggles to keep on line up the center and it deflects off of it and it never actually makes contact. And even if you're doing all that stuff, you still have way less forgiveness and way less assistance on anything wise as opposed to just hooking the bowling ball. So that is why we do that, and that is why that will always reign supreme, is because you are able to create an optimal angle and create miss room and assistance for yourself within the means of that very thin lane that is in front of you. That is not forcing you to do anything extravagant, anything outrageous to accommodate for that. It's just bowling normally within the means of the lane that's in front of you and getting everything as optimal as you can. So that is why we hook the bowling ball. Yeah, I've got like 15 minutes left, but I don't think we need to keep going any longer. I will keep this up, so if you're watching it back, thank you for watching. Make sure you go back and watch that Pathway of Learning, and stay tuned whenever I upload. And in the future, I will definitely do these over the weekends, since I want to make sure we actually have a handful of people that can tune in. But for the couple and few of you that were able to tune in, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching and listening to me talk. And as always, if you have any questions or anything, comment on any video, post in the community, do literally whatever it is you so please, and I will happily be sure to get back to you as quick as I can. So that's all I got, and I hope all of you have a great day. I hope all of you that are starting off your league started off real strong, hopefully stronger than I did just yesterday. And again, if anything, I'm always just a comment away. So enjoy your weekend, everybody. I will try to do a live stream this, yeah, I could probably try to do this one this weekend. I might cover this or even expand on the next video that I plan on posting. But just stay tuned to the community and my posts, and I'll make sure to throw it up. Oh, we actually have some more people that joined. I actually was just about to call it off here because I actually just finished discussing everything. But if any of you have a question that just tuned in, ask away. It can be about anything bowling. I will stick around since we just had a big influx of people to come in. That was actually really ironic that you guys came in. I was literally just about to call it off. I actually got through everything I wanted to get through today. I suppose I could keep it on for these last 15 minutes and just keep the floor open, because I could definitely keep talking about the stuff I've already discussed, but I don't want to seem redundant. If you are just tuning in and you missed everything, all I've gone through is just what I went through in the pathway of learning so far. So it doesn't have to be a question about any of that stuff I covered, but I was just providing some extra clarification and providing an opportunity for you guys to ask me anything if you actually so pleased to ask anything. And again, for those of you that have been hanging around and listening to me, again, I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. Yeah, I know. Definitely do a lot more of these on weekends, so more people can find some time in their busy schedules to tune on in here. And I'll definitely try to record some footage of me, even in leagues and stuff and at tournaments, so we can actually go back and review that. That was a series I was contemplating on posting for a little minute because, I don't know, it just feels weird just like recording myself bowling and putting it up. But I think it's a good tool for all of you, because when you're bowling yourself, like when you're just bowling with yourself or like just bowling, you don't really get to see a whole lot of stuff that we get to see as people that watch you. So by watching somebody else, or even recording yourself and going back and watching yourself, you can see the areas and stuff that you struggled on and the areas and stuff that you succeeded on. So it's really good to reflect on. So I'll probably record myself at some like leagues and stuff, and I will voice over it and stuff. We could talk through everything together, or even do it in a live stream. I could record it and we could do it in a live stream. That'd be kind of fun. That'd be really cool. We'll do that. So I think that'd be a fun little tool we can use, or even just watch like a professional match and I can just be in the back and discuss what I'm seeing. I think that'll come a lot more into play once we kind of learn like the lane and understand like the adjustments, because we can kind of talk through if a professional leaves something on their next shot and you'll see like what adjustments they make. I can kind of talk through why I believe they did that, why they believe they did that, and other stuff, and other such things of that nature. So that'll be a nice little series, a nice little spice to this whole channel that we can add. So unfortunately, those people who tuned in unfortunately did leave. So I am going to call it here. Again, if you have any questions, just shoot me a comment, go into the community and post anything. I'm going to keep trying to promote that community because it's just been me in there posting stuff. So I want to make it clear, like, you can post stuff. I have it fully open to everybody as long as you've been subscribed for a day, because it makes me, that's the minimum I can set it to. I was like, okay. So as long as you're subscribed for a day, you can post anything. You can post videos, you can ask questions, you can do anything. So if you want me to watch you bowl, critique your form, show you something, post a score, whatever, celebrate, like, throw it in there. That's what this is all about. It's meant to be all of us supporting each other and getting better with one another. So, alrighty, I'm going to call it. So I will try to live stream this weekend, and I will hope to see all of you there. Just stay tuned to the posts and everything. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Have a good day, guys.